Denmark. Land of... well, what are they the land of? Let's see, they've given us Lego, Danish postmodern fashions, and oh yeah, metal! Denmark is an unsung land of badass metal bands. Acts like Ill-Disposed, Raunchy, and Volbeat all hail from the land of the Danes. Today we're going to be looking at the debut album of a Danish metal band that I feel stands far above the rest. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you Mnemic. Mnemic formed in Aalborg, Denmark in 1998 and brought with them a fusion of industrial and progressive metal, while dumping in some influences of groove, melodic death, and even nu metal at times. Now, don't let the image of late 90s baggy pants, Hot Topic fashions dissuade you, even though I like that sort of thing. These guys were pioneering something along with Meshuggah that nowadays everyone is almost sick of hearing, and that is a little thing called djent, but we'll get into that a bit later. The original lineup consisted of vocalist Mark Bai, who literally went on to become a priest after leaving the band after recording 2 demos with them, guitarists Mercia Gabriel Efdemi and Rune Stigart, bassist Mikkel Larsen, and drummer Brian Rasmussen. All wonderfully Danish names. Now, I'm going to be covering their entire discography as time goes on, so forewarning, their lineup changes over the years. A lot! Hell, the album I'm reviewing today already went through one lineup change to start with, bringing vocalist Michael Bogball to the table and Thomas Obiste Kofod on bass after the album was finished recording. Obiste would stay with the band, as would Rune and Brian, until the 2012 album Nemesis was recorded. Anyway, enough with this confusing shit. Let's get on with the review! Mechanical Spin Phenomena is a very varied album. You've got elements of industrial and electronic all over the place here, and its layering is so fucking lush. There's almost no other word for it. This album was released in 2003, and its production, even by today's standards, is just perfect and spot on. Amidst all this variance, there is one connecting pin, and that is the absolute ironclad heaviness of this album. It's inescapable. The first track off the album, Liquid, is a goddamn decent kick-in-the-face introduction to this. When I first got this album back in 2004 from Nuclear Blast's mail order service, because yes, there exist people who use that, I was absolutely blown away. I'd never heard something so raw, something with that many different layers and parts going on all at once, but still retained a basic and clear structure. Then I discovered Devin Townsend's music soon afterward, but that's another review for another time. To this day, I've not heard many other tracks that can compare to this. I know one question you might be asking yourself, though. Does the rest of the album keep this up? Well, the short answer is yes. The long answer is fuck yes, but with some minor grievances. Those, however, are more for people who are new to this genre of music than anyone else. The next track off the album, Bloodstained, is perhaps going to be the most accessible to people not completely into hard-ass metal music yet. This is mostly due to the very straightforward chorus. The verses, however, go through elements of groove metal pattern-wise. Drenched on top of all of this is a thick layer of sampling and industrial soundscaping that add even more depth to the already chunky layers upon layers of guitar. The bridge actually reminds me of the song Drones from Fear Factory at a certain point. However, the album that song is off of, Archetype, was released in 2004, a full year after this one. I guess you can say they did it before it was cool. The song concludes with a very badass return to the chorus and stomping double bass drums underneath a massive lead guitar. Mechanical Spin Phenomena has a very progressive element to it, and that is really nice, as each of the tracks flow into each other. As this song ends, it goes immediately into the next track off the album, Ghost. Ghost is by far my absolute favorite song by this band. Vocalist Michael has almost a Rob Zombie thing going on here during the verses. With a simple beat backing it, the song is a perfect addition to a workout or sparring playlist because it makes you want to kick someone's ass, quite frankly.
Let's talk about this band's singer for a moment. This guy is fucking insane when it comes to being a good metal vocalist. Michael's voice on this record is absolutely astounding. Unlike the millions of other people out there who have the same guttural, grunty metal voice that we've heard 1,000 times before on every other record in our collection, he has a very unique yell, scream kind of quality to his voice, and that's a very good word to use to describe it, is unique. It stands out. It doesn't sound like anybody else out there. To me, that is the mark of a talented vocalist. Now, say what you will, I don't like the type of screaming that goes on in many modern metal bands that bring me the horizon, screech right into my fucking ears. Bullshit. That just makes me want to silence it by stabbing ice picks into my fucking ears. I hate that. This guy's voice I can listen to pretty much forever. I like this guy's voice. It doesn't get grating. It doesn't get old. Another quality for me that is the mark of a good metal vocalist is on top of being able to have a unique scream voice, you have a good clean singing voice. Now I can tell you from experience that's not easy to do. Having screamed my lungs out for over 10 years in different metal bands, I don't really have much of a clean voice left. So if you're able to have a decent clean singing voice on top of a unique scream voice at all, that's a pretty good talent. And that is something that this guy has.
On Ghost, he really displays a lot of what he can do. During the choruses, the pre-bridge part, the ending, he does show off, but hey, I mean, why the fuck not? Following Ghost comes a track called DBXXD, which is a really nice way to spell double-crossed, I guess. The song starts off with an effect that sounds like your CD is damaged, making it sound like it's skipping over and over again, even though it's actually not. Typo Negative did a similar thing on their record, World Coming Down, as well. I like when musicians troll me. It's fun. When the track actually begins, we get another totally vicious and belting scream from Michael. Again, showing off a little bit, but as I said, it's fucking enjoyable when he does it. This track is a pretty fucked up track lyrically. The song is about a pedophile that gets caught doing some fucked up things to little kids and what's been going on inside his head the whole time. I can't imagine a song like that is easy or fun to write. I don't know if the track is about something that personally happened to the vocalist or someone he knew or just based off a story in the news, but yeah, it's kinda dark. Musically, it's my second favorite track off the album. All throughout this record, you've got massive guitar layering, and this track is in no short supply of that. As the track comes to a close, it goes from a heavy section to a lush keyboard and guitar harmonics section that's almost dreamlike, and then back to a heavy section once again. The way this happens is really nice because it's not a huge dropout or massive crescendo. The beat keeps on, and it doesn't fuck up the track at all or anything. The way they do this is brilliant. The last minute or so of the track is full of pretty much too spooky for me sounds that lead into the next song, called Tattoos. Tattoos is a track that I would love to see in some kind of apocalyptic movie. You've got this stompy in and out of time riff following completely in unison with the drums, on top of which you've got a droned simple lead full of reverb and delay. It just gives me the visual of a totally burned out city and end of the world kind of stuff. The verse part following it is back and forth panned to the left and right speakers, noticeable most if you're wearing headphones, for a very schizophrenic effect. Now I know that might sound pretty odd, but the best way to describe it is schizophrenic. It's actually a lot cooler than I'm making it sound. This is a slower track, but it picks up during the middle, ending with yet another brutal belting scream. This track also fades out to an odd soundscape that literally sounds like somebody hitting a boiler with a Stilson wrench. The next track has the lovely title of The Naked and the Dead, because that's an image I need. It has the most melodic chorus on the album, and if you don't believe me, just take a listen to this. As you might be noticing from some of the clips I've shared so far, these guys really like bizarre time signatures, but also make them work very well in the framework of their songs. The following track, Closed Eyes, is no exception at all. Remember earlier when I said these guys were really getting into the gen thing before anyone else, just like Meshuggah? Well, I wasn't fucking around. This album is basically pre-gen, and it takes the idea of single riff chuggage to vastly untouched heights compared to what a lot of different bands are doing today. A lot of bands are focused on how closely they can sound like Meshuggah and get away with it as opposed to doing their own thing. I haven't really heard anything that sounds close to this record, and unfortunately, this band didn't do too much very close to this record also after it came out. There are the occasional nods here and there on their follow-up albums, and we'll cover that with the next album next week, The Audio Injected Soul. But let's move on, there's only 2 more tracks to go. Track 8 brings us to the title track, Mechanical Spin Phenomena. Lyrically, I think this is a song about a guy who got fucking wasted and then decided to drive his truck stupidly fast and then ended up becoming dead. Or something like that, I don't know, I'm fucking awful with lyrical interpretation sometimes. This track is probably the least memorable of the bunch, which really isn't a good thing for a title track. I mean, the riffs are great and the track is really fucking heavy, but it's just nothing too notable. I will admit the lead at the end of the track has a very cool scale to it. I really like the tone they chose for lead guitars on this album and for a lot of their other albums. It's got this glassy yet gritty sort of chorus tone. I dig that. This track fades out and brings us the final track before a remix track at the end of the album called Zero Gravity. Personally, I think this is the most unique song that Mnemic has ever done. It's miles apart from anything on this record or any other record they have ever released. Zero Gravity is an almost 8-minute long track that takes a typo-negative approach when it comes to the tempo and sludges through a vast soundscape of soft choir-like keys surrounding a muddy bass tone, deeply reverberated thick drums, a simple clean guitar melody with a smooth and easy lead on top. All of these layers come together in a way that is absolutely beautiful, leaving you feeling as if you really are floating adrift somewhere in space. In my opinion, this is the best closeout to an album like this possible. After surviving the blistering, sonic ass-kicking up to this point, to bring the storm to a calm with a track like this was a fucking brilliant idea. The actual final track of the record is a remix of Bloodstained, depending on which edition of the album you get, and it's done by on-again, off-again Fear Factory keyboarder and full-time member of Frontline Assembly, Reese Fulmer. It's a pretty decent remix. But it really makes me want to hear Frontline Assembly do another album like Millennium. However, that's another review for another time.
Overall, I really like this record. There's just nothing else I've ever heard like it. This is one of the albums in my collection that's truly in a class of its own. And it's hard for me to find anything in my collection that can compare to Mechanical Spin Phenomena. The production for an album recorded in 2003 is absolutely astounding, and I would have loved to have seen a behind-the-scenes video during the recording process to see how they did small things about what they did with this record. For a label debut, this was a brilliant effort, and it really should have taken these guys a lot farther than they ended up going, but, well, what can you do when you're in a progressive industrial groove metal, melodic death metal, new metal band? I mean, really, what can you do?
Now, this album isn't without its minor flaws. One problem people newer to this style of music might have is actually getting into it in the first place due to the rapid change of time signatures. It's one thing I know I had trouble with at first. Newer listeners will get caught up in trying to find the beat in tracks like Closed Eyes or Naked and the Dead, when it's best to just let that go and let the music overtake you. Also, some of these songs might seem to go on for too long for some people and end up just dragging to them. Metal is definitely not the same as heavy rock music when it comes to putting a song together. It's not like building something that's 3 or 4 minutes long and enough to be a radio single. Each track is its own individual story, and that's no exception on this record.
Aside from all this, Mechanical Spin Phenomenon is a goddamn solid metal record. I am so glad that I decided to check this one out on a whim so many years ago. I'm giving this a solid 9.0 out of 10, and I definitely recommend that you check it out as well. I'm some guy on the internet, and I hope you enjoyed this review.